Hello, student. Now we will start with the second unit, that is Unit 2, Data Analysis, Report Writing, and Publication Ethics. So you can see the cartoon. The one person, the researcher, is saying that just had a great idea that I will fill out those surveys myself because he is not getting the sample or he don't want to do that all hard work. So what he said, I will fill out those surveys myself only. I will add some different person's name and I will write only. So save me some trouble. So to find out the respondent and doing all that, my work will get saved. That trouble will, I will get saved from that trouble. But then the another researcher girl is saying it is not at all a good idea because if you do this, you will struggle to write a good method because you can write only a good method or only a good result analysis until and unless you don't have a proper data, right? So what is the data collection? So whenever you are going to do the research, you did good hypothesis, you have good objectives, then you prepared the good method, you did all experiments according to the method, or you want to collect the data as per your method. So for that, how you are collecting data is very, very important. So first we should know what is data collection. So what is data collection? It is the process by which the researcher collects the information which are needed actually to do the research, in a sense, to answer its research problem. So that is what is actually data means, or data collection means. Not data means, it means collection of data means. Then in collecting the data, whenever a researcher decides to collect the data, what he or she has to do? First, he or she has to ask few questions. What questions he or she should ask? Which data to collect? So this is my particular research problem. So for that research problem, which type of data I need to collect? Then how to collect? The next, okay, I need this type of data, but then now how I'm going to collect that data, right? Then who will collect the data? It is not always like that you can only collect the data. Basically, mainly this all is regarding to such research problems which are related to the some public or uh, something like related to some disease information collection, or related to such problems which are descriptive actually. In case of science, it is always like that you have to go and do the experiment, and accordingly you have to select the data collection method. So who will collect the data? So mostly the researcher has to do that job. But if the sample size is too big, then he or she can take help of another colleague to collect the data. But that is not at all the recommended thing. The researcher has to take the efforts. Then when to collect the data? Now it is, suppose a researcher is working on a plant life cycle. So after each 20 or 50 days, the researcher need to collect the data, need to find out how much plant height has increased, roots are increased or branches are increased. All that data he need to collect at each and every time interval, that is 20 days time interval. So it is very important when you have to collect the data, right? Then the selection of data collection method should be based on the following. Now, once you know the answer for all this, then you have to select the method for the data collection. Now, what method you have to select? For that, few points are very important to take into the consideration. The first is the identified hypothesis or research problem. It should, whatever method you are using for data collection, it must identify or it must go hand in hand with whatever hypothesis and research problem you have decided, right? Then what is your research design? Accordingly, you need to choose the collection of data collection method. and the information which you are gathering about the variables, it should match with the data, right? Because until and unless you don't collect the data properly, you will not get any proper information about the variables which you are using for your experiment. Now, the method of data collection vary accordingly. Now, this all data collection methods can vary as per following points: degree of structure, means what structure of your research problem has, right? What degree of structure your research problem has, how much depth you need for that to collect the data for that particular problem. Then degree of quantification or quantifiability, means what is the degree on which you can quantify the data, right? So that it again depends on what research problem you are working on. Then degree of obtrusiveness, and then degree of objectivity. So all these are the points which you have to consider when you are going to collect the data and which method you have to choose. Now we will see one by one in detail that we have seen what is data, then what is data collection, right? We have seen what is data. You have to collect the data. For collection of data, which points you have to keep into the mind, that we have seen. And now to collect the data, there are two types of data. One is called as primary data collection method, and another is called as secondary data collection method. So in primary data collection method, generally statistical methods are there, surveys are there, polls are there, interviews are there, Delphi technique is there, focus groups are there. And in case of secondary data collection method, there are financial reports, sales reports, government reports, mission, vision statements, internet, all these come under the secondary data collection method. If you see, secondary data collection method is generally the information which is available. And if you see the primary data collection methods, where you have to go and collect the information, means you have to take efforts on collection of information more in primary data collection as compared to the secondary data collection method. So, which are the primary data collection methods? The primary data collection methods can be again divided into two categories. One is qualitative method and another is quantitative method. So first we will see quantitative method. Now, quantitative methods are time series analysis, smoothing technique, and barometric technique. Now we will see each of them. Now, what is time series method? But before that, we will see what is quantitative method. Now, quantitative methods or technique for market research and demand forecasting usually use statistical tools. So, statistical tools are actually important whenever you are going to use any quantitative method. In these techniques, demand is forecasted based on the historical data, right? And these methods of primary data collections are generally used to make long-term forecasts. So you are going to just predict everything on whatever data you're collecting right now or in history, right? Then statistical analytical methods are highly reliable on subjectivity is minimal in these methods. So statistical methods, as I said, that they are going to tell you about the significance, so they are more reliable. Now, first method in quantitative method is time series analysis method. Now, what is this method? The term time series refers to a sequential order of values of variable known as trend at equal time interval, right? So in what trend it is going, that is, and at what time interval it is getting the data is getting changed, that intervals you can analyze using patterns An organization can predict the demand for its product and service for the product time. So that is what is called as time series analysis, right? So at which time, which product is needed more, accordingly, the company can produce that. And for that, what it has to do, it has to see the trends, what people has used in history, at what time which particular product is needed, and accordingly the trained company can analyze and accordingly work on it. Then smoothing techniques. So researcher can also do in the same way. It has to study the history, find out the present trends, and accordingly with a specific time interval, it can analyze, collect the data and analyze. Then smoothing technique. Smoothing technique in these cases or in cases where the time series lacks significant trends, smoothing techniques can be used. They eliminate a random variation from the historical demand. So it helps in identifying patterns and demand levels to estimate future demand. The most common method used in smoothing demand forecasting techniques are the simple moving average method and the weight moving average method. The next method is barometric method, which is also known as the leading indicators approach. Researchers use this method to speculate future trends based on the current development. So it is called as barometric method. When the past events are considered to predict future events, they act as a leading indicator. So here you can take this method as a leading indicator. So the next method are the qualitative methods. Now, qualitative data collection methods are especially useful in situation when historical data is not available. In previously, we have seen all that quantitative method, historical data were available. Now here, say historical data will not be available. At that time, you can use qualitative methods, or there is no need of number or mathematical calculation. In qualitative data, you don't need to make any calculations, like you don't need any statistics to get used here. In qualitative research, which is mostly closely associated with words, sounds, feelings, emotions, color, and all other elements, which you are not able to quantify them, or which are non-quantifiable. So in these methods, generally those techniques or those associations are used. Now these techniques are based on experiments, judgments, intuition, feeling, emotions, like that. So that's why it is called as qualitative methods. Quantitative methods do not provide the motive behind participants' response and often don't reach underrepresented population. So quantitative method is having some drawback. Even qualitative methods are having some drawbacks. So it's always better that you combine qualitative method with quantitative method so that you will get the accurate result. Now, which are qualitative methods? Surveys, polls, interviews, Delphi technique, focus group, and questionnaire. So we will see what comes under survey. Surveys are used to collect data from the target audience and gather insights into their preferences, opinion, choices, and feedback related to their product and services. So we see always that whenever we go to the shop, they take feedback. So that is actually a survey. So based on the feedback, they are going to do the improvements. So most surveys softwares often have a wide range of questions types to select. So you can also use the ready-made survey template, which are now available. Google Form is one of the best example to save the time and effort. And online surveys can be customized as per the business brand or as per your research by changing the theme, logo, and whatever your research problem is there. Accordingly, you can prepare the survey form. They can be distributed through several distribution channels. So you can send your survey forms through email, website, offline app, QR code, social media, whatever. You can use any kind of these media uh, to your customers. So you can send, not customers, to your participants or respondents. Then depending on the type and source of your audience, or it means of your group, or of your sample, you can select the channel. So you can select if you want, if your sample size is big and they are not available in immediate contact, they are not there, they are far away, then you can send them emails. If they are nearby, close, you can daily meet them, then you can take it by some offline app, or you can just take it even in a hard copy too. Once the data is collected, survey softwares are there which can be generated as per your research requirement, and they can run the analysis, they can run the analytical algorithms to discover hidden insights. What exactly, all types of algorithm, all types of data they can give you. A survey dashboard can also give you statistics related to what response rate or completion rate, filters based on demographics, whatever type of your research, whatever uh, points you are included in them, accordingly you can collect the data from even the survey softwares. Then the next is polls. So you can take or collect the data by using polls. Polls generally comprise one single or multiple choice questions. So you can go for polls when it is required to have a quick pulse of your respondents' sentiments. So because they are short in length, polls are whatever MCQs are there, so they are short in length as compared to the questionnaire. It is easier to get response from your samples, in the sense people. So like surveys, online polls can also be embedded into various platforms. You can take it from the all above platforms which I have just explained, and they can also be shown how they stand compared to other responses, and you can also compare between them with the polls. Then the next one is interviews. So in this method, the interview asks the respondent or whatever sample you have chosen, those people, face-to-face questions, or even you can do it by the telephone. And in face-to-face interviews, or even on telephone interviews, the interview asks a series of questions to the interviewer in a person and note down the responses. Now here the work has a little bit increased because you have to note down the response, and it is not and as I said, that if it is not feasible to meet the person personally, the interview can be taken on a phone, right? And the data is again recorded as the response of the interview, which is but all this interview method is actually very much time consuming and tedious. And to repeat, suppose some problem has occurred, and to repeat this process, then again you need to do a lot of efforts, right? Then the next one is Delphi technique. Now, what is Delphi method? This Delphi method is generally used for the market expert, or the market, if you want to do research, market research, which are provided with the estimate and assumption of forecast made by the other experts in the industry. So always some experts in the industry which have done the assumption, and that you can use, right? So expert may consider and revise their estimate and assumptions based on the information provided by other experts. So here researcher can use all this information and accordingly plan their technique, that whether you can use this. Generally this Delphi technique is not much in use, The consensus of all experts on demand forecast constitute the final demand of the forecast. So you have to take the or collect the information from all the experts, and finally you have to conclude on the basis of that. So it depends on what kind of research you are doing. So if your research has that kind of objective, you can use this technique. Then the next is focus group. A focus group is one of the example of qualitative data in education, right? In the focus group, a small group of people, around 8 to 10 members, you can discuss the common areas of the research problem with them, and each individual provides his or her insight on issues concerned, whatever problem is there, whatever issue is there, on that each member will give the opinion, and a moderator regulates the discussion. The researcher, one who wants to do the research, has to regulate all the discussion among the group member, and at the end of discussion, the group reaches to the conclusion. So at the end, when everything is, so this group or focused group, you have to take samples of focus group. I mean, many focus group, do the discussion with them on the same topic, and then finally from all the focus group you can conclude regarding your research problem. The next is questionnaire. A questionnaire is the printed set of questions, you all know very well. Either the questions added into that are open-ended or closed-ended. The respondent must answer based on their knowledge, whatever their knowledge or whatever they have opinion regarding that particular topic, and what experience they have with that particular issue or topic. Accordingly, they have to give the response. The questionnaire is part of a survey. It is again the part of survey where the questionnaire end goal may or may not be the survey. So every time survey is done with the giving questionnaire, but it is not always like that, that the questionnaires aim is always doing survey only. It might be another aim also. It might have another aim also. Like in the secondary data collection, these were the qualitative and quantitative methods, right? Where they all are the part of primary data collection. Now in now we will see that how you can do. There is another part also, that is the secondary data collection, that why secondary data is collected. Now we have seen that what is secondary data. Secondary data is the data that has been used in the past, right? So the sources for that particular secondary data can be organizations, health or safety records. We have seen few examples before also in the previous slides. Mission and vision statements, even our college has both of these statements. Then financial statements, magazines, sales reports, CRM software, that is the customer relationship management softwares, which are prepared as per the requirement of the company. Then executive summary, it is a short section of a large document like a business plan or investment proposal or project proposals. That also can be a part of your secondary data. So as per your research required, you may need to take help of these, even government reports. So you can take all these reports as your secondary data. So as the next part is that only, that external sources of secondary data are government reports, press releases, then business journals, libraries, internet, all these can act as a secondary data. So secondary data collection methods can also involve qualitative and quantitative techniques. So secondary data is easily available, hence it is obviously less time consuming, because nothing you have to do. You have to just collect the data which is present, and that is, you have to use it for your research. So the secondary data collection methods can also involve qualitative and quantitative techniques. Secondary data is easily available, and hence it is time consuming, and but it is expensive, because in library everywhere you have to go take Xerox or read there. You may need to pay some money for some library which is not in your college. You have to go somewhere else and do the search for that particular topic. So it may be expensive than the primary data. However, the secondary data collection methods, the authenticity of the data gathered cannot be verified, because in primary data you yourself are collecting the data. In secondary data you are just taking it from, for example, Google. So Google Baba is not always going to tell you the correct things. On Google search engine, you have to go for a proper uh, site, where authentic site, where you can get the correct data, right? So for this reason, actually, we must pay special attention to the analysis and presentation information. What analysis, how you are doing the analysis of the data, and what information we are presenting, and before the presenting, what information we are obtaining. So that is very important. So remember that these data must be useful and functional to us. Which data? That is secondary data is functional to us, useful to us. So the data collection method used has much to do with it. So which method you are using, it is very, very important in case of even secondary data collection method. Now the next is research instrument. Now to collect the data, you can use a particular type of research instrument. And what this research instrument means, it is, you can say it is as an instrument or a tool. So by which instrument or by using which tool you are going to collect the research data. So what instrument or tool describes is, it is actually a device which is used to collect the data, right? So, and another characteristics of that particular research instrument is facilitate variable observation and measurement. So it should facilitate variable observation, different measurement, and it should be helpful in collection of the data. So the types of instrument used by the researcher always depend on what type of data collection you need. So accordingly, the researcher will choose the data collection method, and accordingly, it has to choose the instrument. So many a times, if you don't have a research instrument with you to collect for your very special type of research, then you can also develop your research instrument. But it is very, very important that you need the help of experts, or the research instruments must be developed by the experts, because at the end, whatever instrument you are developing, it must be reliable and valid. If it is not, then your whole research will go in waste. So it is very important, whenever you are developing such research instrument, you must take the help of high degree of research expertise. Now, what are the ways for searching research instrument? Now, how you will go, how you will find these research instrument? Obviously, the first best way is read professional journals or read research journals which are of high quality, because they publish the papers with high quality research, and automatically by studying their papers, you will be able to know what format, what style, what methods they have used, and how they have collected the data, and how the writers have even represented that data. That all idea you can get from these professional research journals. Then you can read the books, that can be the reference book or your textbook, but that should also have a high quality, right? Then the next part, you can talk with other researchers which are doing research in the same area. So they may guide you, because they might know better tools, better instruments which are developed by the others, and they might be using them. So you can discuss always with the other researchers. Then combine or adopt one or more tools. It is not like that my researches depend on this particular topic, so I will only use one tool. or one instrument. It is always better if you combine one or more tools. There is a chance that there is always a chance that you go to more correct results, go towards, or whatever data you collect is in a more correct way, or it is in a more correct manner. So develop his or own instrument to fulfill the specific need. If the instrument is not available for your specific research, then you have to develop, but always remember that you have to take help of research expert to develop such instrument. Now, what are the guidelines to develop the instrument? The instrument must be suitable for its function. Then the research tool will only be effective only as it relates to the particular purpose. So then the instrument must be based on the theoretical framework. So all this you have to take into the consideration. The instrument should be valid. The content of the instrument must be appropriate to test the hypothesis or answer the question being studied. The instrument should be reliable. This is very important. The devised research tool should provide comparable data every time the subject you use is the instrument. So whenever you are using an instrument, it should give you comparable data. An instrument should include an atom that directly asks the hypothesis. So your instrument must fulfill the purpose of your hypothesis. Research tools should be designed and constructed in such a way that cheating is minimized, because in your research data collection, cheating might happen. So that should get minimized with the help of a research instrument. The instrument should be free of bias. It should not always consider, or you should not always consider or take the bias. So it should be free of the bias. A good instrument is free of built-in clues. It should not give any clues. Whatever instrument you are using, the respondent has to use its own brain and give the answers, or whatever experience or information he or she has. The instrument should not contain measures that function as hints or desired responses. Means I want this particular desired response, so I will give the hint, and accordingly the respondent should give response. That kind of instrument should not be there. The researcher may need to read extensively to identify which aspect of the theory are appropriate for the investigation. So before you use the instrument, you should study appropriate you should study the subject in a deep, and accordingly you have to choose appropriate theory to select that particular instrument. Then the response given by each respondent in the research study should solely by his own. It should not get influenced by the author. That my friend is saying, okay, I have to take it here. Okay, you are saying, so I am doing it. It should not be, right? And therefore, the respondent who agrees to participate in a study is responsible for supplying the information. It should be true. It should be honest information. Right? So these are the guidelines for the development of instruments. So you have to develop instrument in such a way that there should not be any influence of the other person, and the respondent must give true information. So today we need to stop it right here. This is all about the data collection first part. The second part we will see in the next lecture.